Our discussion is on how to relate well. Now, unfortunately, I've been given a very short time, so we will not cover much. But thank God, COVID gave me an opportunity to write on several issues. So since we were stopped in March, and I stopped many of the things I was doing, they said people who are 58 and above, you people told us, you are the people who told us, must stay home, isn't it? And I told somebody, even if you had another 10 years, I would still be above it. And I'm very grateful to the Lord because I don't know how it came to my mind that you can actually write during this time. And so from March until now, I've written quite a few books. So if you're really interested in this topic, I would encourage you, you can pick my first book is called Finding a Life Partner. In other words, it's more for unmarried people who have not ruled out getting married. Of course, if you have ruled it out, don't get my book. It's about how to find a life partner. The second book, which you can pick, and all these books are available in Amazon, so you can actually even just now get it out of your mobile. It's on friendship. Simply exactly what we are talking about today. How to relate with one another, whether for marriage or not in marriage. And you can pick, it's not a very big book on friendship. The third book I wrote is for married people. The first two, especially for singles, is very important. The third one I wrote is for somebody, even if you are not married, you intend to get married. And I told you, I argue in the book, do you want a Christian marriage or the traditional marriage? And I compare a traditional marriage, African traditional marriage, and a Christian marriage. And the two are not the same. They are wide apart. Because what makes the difference is the belief system. For example, if you're in a traditional marriage, you are married even beyond death. You know the Christian marriage, until death do us. In a traditional marriage, even if I die, my God still speak for me. And since I bought you, if I die, you still belong to our clan, isn't it? So that's why you must be inherited. I was telling my children about that. They said, no, Kikuyu don't inherit. I said, no, that's a normal thing. In fact, in Kikuyu, we call it Wodhabio. To be inherited, it's called Wodhabio. Because death brought a sin on you. The only way you can be cleansed to be holy again is for a man to sleep with you. And it has to be one of the brothers of your dead husband. That is the choice you make. So anybody who chooses to have a traditional marriage had better know the death of your husband does not annul marriage. It continues even after the guy is dead. And especially if he paid dowry. And that's one of the things that my book argues. If you are a guy who wants to be bought, please understand you are not a Christian. And your marriage will not be Christian. And it has implications. Because dowry is not commercial. It's religious. And in fact, it's so serious that if for example, I paid one goat when I married. When my daughter is getting married, if I get 2 goats, the ancestors start speaking. And there will be a curse, there will be shira in my home. Can you see, dowry was not just a commercial thing? Because the spirits were involved. Am I communicating? Anyway, you can read it in my book. And that's all about the difference between a Christian marriage and a traditional marriage. After I wrote that book, I picked another one. I thought, one of the things about relationship that is very difficult is challenges. And so my book is talking about, it's talking about resolving challenges in marriage. The assumption is there must be challenges. And my book argues, if you have been married for 5 days and you have disagreed on nothing, the big possibility is one of you is a pretender. Second alternative is both of you are pretenders. The third one is you are not yet married. Because I argue in my book, in any relationship, you are not married to marry as children. So you must be adults, isn't it? That period of being adult means you have grown in one home, I have grown in another home, and there are values and worldviews that are brought by it. Only to come into marriage and discover what she believes in. For example, she is marrying a husband. The only husband she knows is her father. But I was not there to know. So, as soon as I start behaving as a husband, and I'm not a husband like her father, can you see the fireworks? And it's not anything I can do about it. Because I was not there. I have no idea. So I argue in my book that if there are no differences in your marriage, there is a great possibility that marriage will not last. Because you see, one will pretend until one day they burst. That's why you find those marriages without a single challenge. One day there is a challenge and they burst. People kill each other. Because basically you have been imagining there is something else. But I argue in my book that differences in marriage are God intended. Why? One of the source of differences is simply the fact that the gender is different. The way men think is not the way women think. And God is the one who said he made them male and he made them different. So if there is problem in your marriage, part of the reason is from God. He intended the difference. And yet that difference may be the one that is causing trouble. So so I emphasize that. So it can be gender difference, but sometimes it's personality difference. And the trouble is that opposites attract. If you're a very talkative man, it will be very difficult to marry a talkative girl. Because you go for the first date and you are ready to talk, but he can't allow you. You say one sentence, he speaks fine. Another sentence, he says fine. By the end of it, somebody asks you, how was the date? Terrible. And what is terrible is you like hearing yourself. And the God never allowed you to hear yourself. Can you see the problem? So you marry, because if you go to a girl, you are talkative, and you go to a girl who doesn't like talking, and every time you say, is it? Atia. Now, once she is listening to you, you say, I look no further. This is a girl to marry. Now the trouble is, in your marriage, you forget you married her because she is quiet. So when she is quiet, you think she doesn't like you. Are you getting the complexity? That the thing that attracted you is the one that gives you trouble. Like you like her because she is quiet. Then you take her to see your mother. You are talking to your mother, she's not talking to mom. You ask her, surely, how can you refuse to talk to mom? I'm not refusing. I'm listening. But you can't listen to say something. No, she can't change. She's a quiet girl. That's why you married her. But now there is trouble. What's the cause of trouble? Her personality. So can you see what I say? That when you see no differences in your relationship, there is a great possibility. One of you is a pretender, two of you are pretenders, or you are not yet married. You stay together, you're housemates, but you are not yet married. So my book argues that the reason why you enjoy your marriage is because you learn to accept the differences. That until you accept that girl will never change. Because the trouble is the first 5 years of marriage, you are working on how to change a woman. 5 years later, she still hasn't changed. You are very frustrated. Now, why don't you learn early enough that you will not change? You accept her that she is. And now, when she keeps quiet, you say, hey, I don't know how you keep quiet. It doesn't bother you. Because you have accepted she will be quiet. If you're a quiet woman, now you don't like your husband. He's too payuka. Why did you tell the mother? What was necessary? Now, after some time, you accept him the way he is. You know wherever you go, he will be payuka, like a loudspeaker. And you have gotten used to it. You are not embarrassed. You accepted it. That's the way to start improving your relationship. By accepting what can be changed and what cannot be changed. And that's what the book is arguing about. The third book I wrote, still within COVID, was a book on divorce. I want it very clear that marriage is not the type of relationship you can taste. Marriage is not tastable. You don't taste. You know other things you are allowed to taste? No. Marriage is like entering into a dual carriageway, where once you have decided to enter into the dual carriageway, you are not allowed to change direction unless you, of course, want to commit suicide. You must go until the roundabout. Are we together? For marriage, the roundabout is called death. So you know very well you are going the wrong direction. You know. There's no debate about it. But you have to keep going to the wrong direction until the next roundabout. So that's one thing that people need to understand. And I know, I'm very happy that some of the people here are not married. The best place to be is not to be married. Because then you have a choice. You can drop the guy like a hot potato, and there will be no consequences. If you get married, you have entered one way, traffic. One way, traffic. And of course, the book is quite a long book. I didn't call it divorce because I thought that would frighten people. I called it long-term view of marriage. Long-term view of marriage. That the relationship must be not a relationship where you are thinking about how to destroy each other. No. You are going to be together. And it's not going to be short. And I argue in the book, the moment you know you are going to stay together, the marriage improves. Why? You are investing for the long term. So, if, for example, if I hire, I've just been speaking to a Daktari who is from Narok, and that's where they normally have big pieces of land, people growing wheat. If I have leased your land for 2 years, then the first year the wheat harvest can't pay. The second year can't pay. You have made a loss. But if I own the land, even if 2 years I don't harvest, I'll keep planting wheat. Because in the 10-year period, I'll have made enough money to cover for the loss. Am I right? Now, the long-term view of marriage makes marriage enjoyable. For example, she's pregnant and behaving funny. Then you realize it's temporary. Why don't I compare it to Nganga's marriage? We got married in 1979. So we have been married for more than 42 years, married. And by the time you are married for 25 years, at home they have left, isn't it? And I'm told by the doctors, even if she wanted to break pregnant, she's not pregnantable. I'm not going to That's called menopause. That's what it is called. So if pregnancy was the one giving you trouble, it's a temporary affair. So we can stand it. Am I communicating? Yes. Because you are looking long-term. Yeah. And it doesn't bother you. If children are a problem, you know, she's always this child and this child, she has forgotten me. Don't worry. Children are not part of your marriage. They are only visiting. If you come to those of us who have been married for more than 40 years, the grandchildren will come and then disappear. You just two of us. Am I communicating? Children are not part of your marriage. The same thing. God gave you no children at all. It's not such a big thing. Until you discover, even those who have, after 25 years, they are alone, exactly like you. So when you go to visit somebody who have been married for 50 years, you can't tell. In fact, last night you were talking about another bishop who had 6 sons and now lives in a rural area on his own, alone. He's now over 90. So somebody was telling us how they went to visit. And he's just alone, and his wife. They are both, I think one is 94, the other one 95. And so since he is a bishop, he retired 65. He has been 30 years without children, because by the 65, the children are not there. Can you see the children? Now when you go there and the two of them are together helping each other, can you tell whether they had any children at any time? No. So you understand, with a long view of marriage, the things that make your marriage break no longer make sense. Look like a fool. How could you be divorcing because of children and the one passing through? So whether children came or didn't come, whether they were boys or girls, like I know we are saying, in fact last night we were saying, that bishop had 6 sons, 1 daughter. You assume that if he had sons, at Hata but these are 6 sons. And he is still And not for 2 years. For how many years? 30. So you can understand why the long-term view affects your relationship positively. Are we together? Very, very important. Because then you start investing long-term. Then this year, I came out with my next book. It's called The Marriage Game. The Marriage Game is saying, if you want to enjoy your marriage, think of your marriage as a game. Maybe you are Manu and you want to score. The rules are similar. You must know the role of one, the role of the other, but you must understand you are not in competition. You have one goal. So what you are doing must aim at getting the goal past the 2 poles. Is that what you call scoring? And so my book argues that one needs to be understood that what is lacking and causing a lot of trouble in relationship is when the two are competing. There's nothing worse in a marriage than for a husband competing with the wife. And of course, I argue in the book, in a Christian marriage, that cannot happen. When it happens, you know very well you're backsliding. Because in a Christian marriage, go back to my first book, in a Christian marriage, you need to understand, the two shall become one. That's a Christian marriage, not a traditional marriage, a Christian marriage. Once you are one, then you understand one may be the leg, the other one is the shoulder, but the shoulder and the leg must cooperate if you're going to remain alive. Am I right? So you start understanding you can't compete. In fact, it's the only relationship, one of the biggest benefits of marriage is that the only relationship without competition. When your husband is promoted, pesa inaingia. So you get excited and you are not the one promoted. But you know, that trip you have been planning to go to South Africa, my husband has been promoted. We are going there. Am I communicating? Yeah. And then or the other way around, your wife gets promoted. And you get very excited. But in a traditional marriage, if your wife is getting promoted faster than you, there is trouble. Because who is the boss here? You know, like, I don't have a PhD. My wife is a PhD in communication. Now, so who is who? But you see, I was there shouting when she got her PhD. Because, you see, the PhD is coming home. Am I communicating? So that whatever happens to your wife is actually mine yet. Am I communicating? Yes. So when you think about relationship as a team, you can see what it means. But I want you to understand, like I'm saying, you must answer, so why do you want to relate well? That's what will help you in relating well. When you answer the question, why is relationship important? Whether it's a relationship between you and your mother, relationship between you and your boss, relationship between you and your client, I think you call them patients. But they're still clients, am I right? Yeah. Or whether it's your relationship with your son, adult son, or young son, whatever. You must answer the question, why do you want to relate well? Because the moment you understand why, the how is automatic. The reason hows have problems is because of lacking why. Am I communicating? And that's why you need to ask yourself, why do I relate well? For example, why do I relate well with my parents? And they are kitwagumu, difficult people. I remember all the meanness. Never gave me enough pocket money, I always struggled. Why do I have to relate well with them? Once you start understanding, it's not a request from God. It is a command. And the Bible tells us it's a command with a promise. With a promise. Then you start looking for a way of cooling that volatile lady, your mother. Because you want blessings from God. For her to even curse you. But you know very well that her curse is a waste of time. You cannot get Tira because your mother curses you. And that's in the scripture. Just go to the two guys, Barak and Balaam. You know the story? In the book of Numbers. The prophet was told, curse them. He said, it's not that I don't want, but they are not castable. Whatever God has blessed, no man can, including your mother. Now, once you understand that, the reason why you relate well with your mother is because you want blessings from God. So she can continue cursing you. But you know her curse is a waste of time. Because the Bible is clear. A curse that is not deserved is like a bird that is lacking somewhere to land. It can never land on. Have you read that in the scriptures? Yeah. So you can relate well with difficult, impossible parents because of the reasoning, because of the why. What about you're a parent with difficult children? In fact, I belong to a fellowship. We call ourselves Flame from the 70s. Not flame of the 70s. Flame from, not of. You know what the flame is still on. But it started in there. You are not allowed to join our fellowship unless you are in the university between 1970 and 79. So nobody else comes. So most of us are in their 70s. A few people are going to us 80, but generally speaking, very few are in their 60s. Now, when we met last time, we had an impossible topic. It was, how do you handle your children, adults, the parents of your grandchildren, who decide not to love the Lord? Difficult people. How to handle difficult relatives. You are told, what about if your husband came and said, I'm gay? And you have been married for 30 years. Then all of a sudden he says, I am? How do you handle it? That is the topic. What about your son who comes and tells you, by the way, I know you have been looking for grandchildren, but don't think that I'm old as that is. It's not coming anytime soon. I want to marry another man. And so we cannot get children. How do you handle them? Can you see it's the why that will cost you? And the word of God is very clear. Parents must treat their children well and not, to use the English word they use there, exasperate them. Have you read that one? That as a parent, you do not want to exasperate your children, not because the children deserve any better, but because you will be in trouble with God. You know, your children are not your property. They belong to God. And I think that's why you people call the room where children are born a delivery room, to remind the mother that you're just a delivery system. Now, the child came from God, but God used a delivery system. Just to remind, that's why the room is called that. Because the mother might come saying, my child. No, it's not your child. You are simply a delivery system. But the child belongs to God. So when you treat your children badly, you will be in trouble with the owner. And you are not the owner. Who is the owner? God. One of the books I've written is called A Leader as a Steward. And I actually use that example of children as a stewardship issue. So can you see, you relate with difficult children because they are not your own. You are only a steward, isn't it? It's like if I make you my farm manager and I want to keep pigs, and you don't like pigs, you better look after my pigs. Otherwise you'll be jobless. I'll fight. You don't know, why can't you keep cows? That's none of your. So you need to understand that the children belong to God. So how you relate with them? The motivation will be very clearly the owner of the children. Am I clear? Yeah. You know, like, now for you, many of you, I guess, your children are small, isn't it? But some of them are called toddlers. Have you heard of that title? And they are difficult. You know, you are happier when they are 1 year below. They are 2 years, 3 years, and my, they are terrorists at home. Am I right, mothers? They are terrorists. You go to a supermarket, you see a child growing up and doing what? And you can see the mother helpless. And you feel like, children, is that mine? No, it's not yours. You know that, anybody? But you have to know that God has put you there to bring them up in the fear of God. So how you relate with your children then will not be based on the action. After all, even God doesn't deal with you on the basis of your action. It's in by grace. So you start understanding how great, and you can see how critical that is. It's the same thing if you are relating with a girlfriend. You are not married. She's a girlfriend. She's not your wife. Now, how you relate with her is not how she wants. Maybe she wants you to sleep with her. She can't understand how you call yourself a man. And she has been your girlfriend for 3 years. Might he be okay? Is there a medical problem? It's not only you're a doctor, woman. Now, you start thinking of all the things you read in the book. My friend, all of a sudden you remember, this guy is not my property. This is God's property. The only way I can relate with my boyfriend is how the owner wants me. So you cannot start treating your boyfriend like you want him to do anything and everything. Because the relationship is at a board. Can you see how why will affect how you relate with your boyfriend? Very, very important to understand. And the same thing at work with your boss. Colossians chapter 3 is talking about bosses. And it's telling you, please understand, your bosses don't have absolute authority. They only have delegated authority. The real boss, that is Colossians chapter 3 verse 23. The real boss is in heaven. You have a doctor, administrator in your hospital who is just chaos. You keep remembering, this is not my boss. He only has delegated authority. And because of that, you know very well. The word of God says, the heart of the king is in the hands of he can turn it this way or that way. So that terrorist of a boss, we put him upstairs. And God is able to handle him. Are we together? So you cannot treat your boss carelessly or feel like you are justified to be difficult as an employee. Because you are being reminded you are not doing work for him, you are working for God. So you can see the why you relate well with your boss has to do something to do with Colossians chapter 3. And the same thing, how you relate with your juniors. And I can go on, but we don't have enough time to find a way of finishing. You know, that's the first thing you need to understand, the why. The why is for God's glory. Number 2, why is for your own health. Why did I relate well with all these people? For my own health. Why? Because when you relate badly with me, I might not even care, but it will hurt you. And you doctors tell us there's something called psychosomatic disease. Now you can give me the answer. That's a disease. No, the other day I was asking a doctor, is it a real disease? Says yes, you can go to the toilet and produce blood. But the real cause is a sight. Am I repeating correctly? You know, I don't know, I never entered medical school even on the wrong side of the door. So you are here, you can correct me. So when you relate badly with people, you are inviting psychosomatic disease. So please be selfish. Love yourself for your own sake, not for the other person. For your own sake, be at peace with him. Because when you are not at peace with him, he might not suffer. You will suffer. So for your own health, it is important to relate well with people, including difficult people. And it's very important to understand there are people who are simply difficult. But you cannot be a Christian and have an enemy for now. The moment you say, so-and-so is my enemy, you also say, I'm on my way to hell. The two are the same statement. I don't know if that's what you say. The moment you tell me you're an enemy, you are telling me, I'm on my way to hell. So there is no question. Because the word of God is clear. Love your enemies. Now, how can you love an enemy? It's because he's not an enemy to you. He himself is treating you like an enemy. But for you, you forget him. So you cannot, it's not an enemy. So the first thing is for your own health. Why do you need it? Well, for your own health. But I think it's also for your own health spiritually. Not just physically, but spiritually. Because the moment you carry a grudge, you'll be in trouble with God. Not just physical, medical problem. You'll be in trouble with God. Because you're asking. Remember the guy Jesus gave the example of this guy who forgave was given a lot. Then he went trying to strangle somebody who owed a little. You know the story, isn't it? You know the parable. He went strangling a guy who owed little. When the owner, the master discovered, he locked him up permanently now. Giving us a clear message that if we have been forgiven, we of necessity must also forgive. And you know yourself. You know how many times you have failed God. On the basis of how many times you have failed God, and yet He does not treat you according to your sin. That's the way you're supposed to relate with your so-called enemy. So it's not just physical health, it's also spiritual health. I need to understand. So as we talk, is there somebody whom on this earth whom you cannot greet? You see the pass here, you pass over there. How do you know somebody is an enemy? When you hear their problem, you smile. The moment you smile, you know you're on your way to hell. You know that tells you that the truth is you never forgave them. You did not forgive them. Because if you forgave them, like the guy called Stephen, they are throwing stones. One stone is landing on an eye, the other one on a nose. And what is he shouting in pain? Forgive them. They even don't know what they are doing. That is what it means to be a Christian. So as you relate with people that are difficult, you need to have that at the back of your mind. Of course, I must also be practical. I do not recommend at any time that if your husband is violent, oh, no, sorry, I should have said the other way. If your wife is violent, because a lot of troubles are coming from violent wives. You don't used to think it's the men only who are violent. Many men are suffering quietly. But I would advise you, my brother, before you die, whereas divorce is certainly not on, separation is what? Separation is a temporary relief for the guy to be treated by a psychiatrist. Am I communicating? And if you die, it will be too late. By the time you're treated, you are dead. Are we together? So it's important to understand. So I'm not suggesting that if someone wants to kill you, that if you are a Christian, you allow him to kill you. Because then I will take it that you committed suicide. And committing suicide is another way of going to the wrong place. So you need to understand you must take life seriously, including your own life. So we are not suggesting that in this relationship game that you ignore somebody who is likely to harm you. But having said that, it means that you can stay in a marriage with a man whom you should hate, but you have forgiven them. So you're able to stay with them. In fact, I was talking to somebody like that. They are staying together. And they have stayed together for the last 10 years. But they can hardly talk. And the person has been asking for prayer. Our prayer is that something will happen. But it's taken 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Now 10 years later, they are still staying together. But we are still believing for a miracle. So that's really what you're talking about in relationship. You're not suggesting always that you'll be easy. But even when it's not easy, like my book, Unlocking from View of Marriage says, since you know one of these days, God will touch you or might touch you, whichever depends on your faith. You stay and wait, isn't it? Yeah, as long as there is no violence that is involved, or it is not somebody immoral, and therefore likely to bring HIV home, it's possible to stay together. Are we together? Yeah, it's possible to stay together. On the belief that the scripture in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 is telling the truth. Why? It is saying if you stay with that wrong guy, you stay there because the marriage will be blessed through the same person. Have you read that one? And the children will be blessed through the same person. And by staying there, the guy himself or the herself is finally going to be converted. because of your testimony. Have you read that in the Bible? That's really why you stay in a relationship that is difficult. But the only way you stay in such a relationship, that's what it is our topic, is something that Dr. Lawrence Crabb, I really recommend you read his books on relationship. Dr. Lawrence Crabb, C-R-A-B. Is it double B? Double B. Crabb. Dr. Lawrence Crabb. He says this: a good marriage is only possible where the two of them come in totally satisfied with God. Nobody is coming to marriage to depend on the other, because they have found their satisfaction in God. So the reason we are married is so that all the goodness God has given me, I have a chance to share with someone. My spouse is a recipient of the grace that passes through me. So I'm not going to marry to get anything from her. I'm going to marry to give. Can you imagine if she also comes to marry to give? So it means that if you discover that there is something your spouse is not giving, your marriage will still last. Because you know you can get it from God. Your contentment, your joy is total in God. And therefore, you know He can give you. That's why you can be in a marriage. You can be in a marriage that is a sexless marriage. And you're still there. Why? Because the God who made sex has a capacity to help you to stay without sex to the glory of God. You can find your satisfaction in God. That's why single people do not have an excuse in being immoral. Because even if you have no sex partner, God can give you contentment and joy. The fact of not having a sex partner. Not communicating. You can say, don't you know I'm not married? I agree, I know. But sex is not oxygen. Now, you know if it is oxygen, if you stay 2 minutes without oxygen, you tap over. Now, but with oxygen, you can stay, with sex, you can stay 10 years without it. And you'll still be medically okay. Am I communicating? That's why you can stay in a sexless marriage and still honor God. You cannot, some boys say, she said no for 3 weeks, and I went, you can, brother, no, you can understand. I can't. Not because I don't know what you went through. Not that I support your wife, but you should have found your contentment in God. So what we are saying then is that you need to relate well with the people simply on the basis of your own health. And then thirdly, you need to relate well to set an example. You need to relate well to set an example. You are talking about your impact on the way you live. Studies are showing, for example, the children of divorcees have a 60% chance you're also divorced. Of course, unless they are saved, they can find their satisfaction in God. Just like it is said, a divorcee, if you divorce once, you have a 75% chance you will divorce the second time. See, practice makes